Part 65. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 651. A mountain peak, thousands of palaces, countless Taoist scrolls, a waste of time and energy, but nothing gained. After all, it took a lot of effort to get up there, and I was still full of expectations, so I felt a little depressed. At this time, the clone discovered something strange. Wu Yu didn't think much about it for the time being and headed towards the strange place, taking back the clone along the way. This strange thing is actually at the highest point on the top of this mountain, which is basically one of the highest places in the entire Thunder Mountain. Wu Yu was standing at the highest point, with a dense lightning network above his head. The strange thing is that in the center of the lightning network, there is a hole about 1 foot in diameter. Of course, this is not a hole that can escape the lightning network, but a lightning and thunder channel. After this hole, there is a snake-like channel that leads to nowhere. If this mountain with a palace is a human head, then the purple lightning channel in the sky is a braid in the center of its head, extending upwards. There is nothing to gain in this mountain peak. When such a passage appears, it is of course impossible for Wu Yu not to explore it. However, in order to avoid danger, he sent a clone first, flew into the passage, and then flew higher into the sky in this narrow thunder passage. After walking through this winding passage for several hundred feet, Wu Yu's clone, although he did not have sharp eyes, could probably see clearly. Looking out through the lightning wall surrounding the passage, he could see that it was almost the entire place. On the top of a giant thundering peak, looking down, the immortal platform is even smaller. As for Princess Yuking and the others, they are naturally not visible at all. Below are 7 peaks that look like thundering giant swords, 4 of which have palaces. Wu Yu's clone suddenly saw that these 4 peaks with palaces had passages like braids extending from the tops of their heads, extending towards the sky, leading to the same place as Wu Yu's passage. It is said that from the highest point of Qingtianshu Mountain, you can see the immortal palace in the sky. Could it be that this thunder tunnel leads to the sky? Wu Yu's body also entered it, while the clone continued to move forward. It should be possible to use the ancient immortal talisman now, so he is not very worried about his safety. Keep going up. With his fiery eyes, he could see more clearly that there were thick purple clouds on top of the giant thunder peak, and there were more lightnings on the clouds, crackling like monsters hiding their heads. 4 braid-like lightning channels were inserted into the clouds. Wu Yu's clone went first and entered the thick clouds first. After entering, the surrounding lightning walls blocked the lightning in the clouds. Wu Yu would not be attacked by thunder, but the thick clouds also blocked his sight. It was as if he was moving forward in a violent ocean of thunder. As we walked, not too far into the clouds, we discovered that there was a fork in the road ahead. There is a fork in the road, how can one go? Minglong said depressedly. There seemed to be 4 forked roads in total. Wu Yu caught up with the clone and came here. He entered each fork in the road and observed it, and said, it's not a fork in the road, but the passages of the 4 peaks, which converge together. In addition to the direction we just came from, there are 3 forks here. Is downward, which means that these 3 forked roads lead to the other 3 peaks below, and only this forked road leads to the top. I see. Wu Yu has been going up. This node is where the 4 passages converge. They gather together and then continue to go up. Doesn't this mean that we are going to other mountain peaks through these 3 downward passages? Minglong said in surprise. It should be fine. The peaks Wu Yu came to were all Taoist scrolls, and the things on other peaks should be different. For example, there must be a peak with many fairy spirits planted there. You can't get Taoist scrolls here. Maybe you can gain something by going to the other 3 peaks. However, these 3 downward passages do not attract Wu Yu for the time being, because there is another upward passage. This passage is the path where the following 4 passages converge, and is where the meaning of these 4 passages lies. There is a special passage up here, and there must be something extraordinary further up. Wu Yu flew directly upwards. He went deep into the thick clouds and was buried deeply by the huge thunder roaring everywhere. He followed the narrow passage and went up. This passage was actually protecting him at this time. However, even though it keeps going up, this passage seems to have no end. If I continue walking like this, I won't end up in heaven, Wu Yuxia thought. It's a beautiful thought. If you fly up, you can fly to heaven. How many people must have become immortals since ancient times? Ming Long rolled his eyes. Of course, Wu Yu just talked casually. He continued to go up, and when he saw that there was no end, he accelerated his speed. He kept running like this for 3 days and 3 nights. He couldn't count how far he had gone up, but he was still in the clouds, surrounded by purple clouds and mist. In the clouds and mist, countless lightning bolts were galloping like giant beasts. Wu Yu could even see lightning that was dozens of feet thick. The thunder roared past, and it felt like the earth was shattering. Is there an end to this passage? How about we go back and see the palaces on the other 3 peaks? Don't waste time going up, Ming Long sighed. She just doesn't have the patience. Wu Yu was not affected by her and continued to move forward. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Finally, 5 days later, the thick purple fog suddenly dissipated. In front of him, there was a bright and clear sky. The lightning channel ended unexpectedly. Wu Yu rushed out of the lightning channel. He came to an incredible place. Looking up, there was a shining starry sky. Those stars were shining in an extremely distant place. A galaxy flowed through the sky, and every drop of river water was a shining star. And under his feet, there was a sea of clouds that seemed to have no end. Of course, unlike the white sea of clouds where the ancient tower used to be, this was a purple sea of clouds mixed with a lot of thunder and lightning. Those lightnings were like countless creatures, galloping and swimming in this endless sea of clouds. Directly below Wu Yu, there was a thunder vortex. The speed of the vortex was not fast, and the center of the vortex was exactly where Wu Yu had just come out. It was the thunder passage leading to here from 4 peaks. This place had no end under the feet, and no end in the sky. Wu Yu could only go back from the thunder passage below, and it was impossible to penetrate this endless sea of lightning clouds. This sea of lightning-like clouds was simply magnificent and breathtaking. Standing here, Wu Yu was stunned for a moment. Where should he go? He knew that he could not leave the lightning passage too far, otherwise he would not be able to go back. If he left here a little, in such a wide place, he was afraid that he would not be able to find this passage. He split several clones and went in all directions to see what he would gain first. At this moment, there was a sudden change. In the dark, it seemed that someone was calling him. After coming to the ancient immortal road, there was mystery everywhere, and Wu Yu had long been accustomed to some strange things. However, the wonder that happened this time was beyond his imagination, and beyond Minglong's imagination. Hearing the shout, he raised his head and saw a light flashing in the distant galaxy in the sky. It was a golden light, extremely far away, but in an instant, it descended in front of Wu Yu. In such a short time, it actually crossed an unimaginable space. When he appeared in front of Wu Yu, he was no longer a light. Instead, it was a golden light and shadow. This light and shadow gradually showed its appearance in front of Wu Yu. It was a peerless monkey king who only appeared in Wu Yu's visualization mind. Exactly the same. Armor, long boots, cloak, and the golden monkey hair, majestic. The only thing missing was the Ruyi golden cudgel. Wu Yu found it difficult to figure out for a while, how could it appear here? Could it be that this ancient immortal road is the place of immortals? Seeing him here, he was extremely shocked, and his mind was blank. Great sage. It was hard to say a word at this time. The light and shadow had no expression on his face. The two worlds are in calamity, the world is upside down, ghosts and demons are out, who will protect this fairy land? The light and shadow stared at Wu Yu and said word by word. He was looking at Wu Yu, but it didn't seem like it. Perhaps, it was not a living thing. Wu Yu remembered what he said, but what did it mean? The two worlds are in calamity. What are the two worlds? What does it mean to turn the world upside down? Where is the fairy land? Maybe the fairy land is the heaven. Does he mean the calamity that the heaven has encountered? For a moment, of course, he couldn't figure it out. Is it you? Or the next one, or the next one? It was not until this time that Wu Yu felt that the light and shadow really saw him. But the next moment, the light and shadow suddenly bumped over and even bumped into Wu Yu's body. At that moment, Wu Yu clearly felt the existence of the Ruyi Jinggu Bang, and he felt that the light and shadow bumped into it. Dao, Xian. Then, there was a voice, which sounded beside Wu Yu's ears, or perhaps, it actually sounded inside his body, beside his consciousness. Invisibly, he saw a monkey, all golden, shining, and merged into his soul. My Dao is to destroy, whether it is the sky or the earth, whether it is heaven or hell, whether it is the heavenly rules or the dead rules, all the unbreakable ones can be broken by my Dao. Break and then establish, re-establish the heavenly rules. I am the one who breaks the Dao. But, I am not the one who controls the Dao. After breaking the Dao, let the one who controls the Dao roam the world freely and unrestrained. Wu Yu didn't quite understand these voices, but he could understand the meaning. These words, every word, could shake his heart, as if even the realm of the Dao in his heart had been sublimated. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 652. It seems to be talking about a type of people. Born to be unyielding, born to be destroyed, when a certain system or rules are controlled by powerful forces and the people are living in misery, this type of people will appear. Destroy these powers and establish a new era, but do not take charge of the new era, but retire after success and live freely in the world. Maybe that's what it means. This is his Tao. Of course, it's not just that simple. The most important thing is the word break. This deafening voice that sounded from the heart did not stop. Wu Yu entered a wonderful realm, in which he digested the Tao he had obtained. He believed that even if he didn't understand what was going on now, he should know that this was the most precious time. Although the path he was taking now was different from that of the great sage equaling heaven, it was generally very similar at present, at least the main body was similar, and Wu Yu had some of his own content in the details. Those voices that came to his mind, one after another, led Wu Yu's body and mind forward in the realm of Tao. In fact, Wu Yu didn't know that it was very difficult to lead others and make them progress in the realm of Tao. At least in the world of Yama, no matter how strong a person is, he can't make people progress. After all, everyone's Tao is useless even if it's similar. But the light and shadow of the great sage equaling heaven can. Hearing these mysterious words, even if you can only understand a little, the progress is huge. In fact, Wu Yu didn't just let the other party guide him. When guiding him, he remembered his experience just now from those words, and remembered the scene when he gave up everything and ignored those threats and walked up the stairs. In the final analysis, it was a kind of resistance and a rebellion. The 8 people on the Wangxiantai were already powerful and high for Wu Yu, so when he substituted these 8 people and what the great sage equaling heaven said, he immediately had a wonderful reaction. No matter what voice came to his mind at this time, he could understand and understand it to the greatest extent. Those who break the Dao, will not stand without breaking, and will rather die before they can live. I will not look back, I will not yield until I die, I will rather make this heaven and earth, no one to fear. No one and no object in this vast universe can stop my freedom. Finally, Wu Yu heard the word freedom. These two words made him tremble all over and his scalp numb. Suddenly he realized that freedom is the most difficult state, but it is the ultimate pursuit. Nothing can stop it, no one can stop it. Everything that the light and shadow said now is too similar to what he encountered. It just so happened that Wu Yu made a choice before this. It was this choice that made him go up without hesitation and risk everything, which made him understand many of these voices. Even if these voices sound mechanical, they are still the best preaching to him. At this moment, on his way to the Dao, someone held him and took Wu Yu forward at the most terrifying speed. The Dao in his heart was unstoppable and soaring. The whole world was clearer in his eyes. And his persistence in everything was even more firm. Cultivating the Dao can change a person's state of mind. He had been forbearing for a while, but now he got the biggest breakthrough. Smooth methods are not suitable for Wu Yu. What he wants is to move forward courageously and never die. Once he breaks through the obstacles in his heart, he will be unstoppable, just like now. After an unknown period of time, the voice in his heart ended, but he couldn't calm down for a long time. Finally, a shocking roar made the sea of lightning and clouds shake layer by layer. Wu Yu didn't know how many breakthroughs he had made in the realm of Dao. However, this was indeed the fastest progress he had ever made. When he opened his eyes had terrible calmness and firmness. This firmness was a firmness to his will and Dao that no one could change. What people are most worried about and afraid of is always the power of the heart. The strength of the heart is the most fundamental strength. The Dao is in the heart, and nothing can be broken. Ming Long said that 7 or 8 days had passed. To Wu Yu, he only felt that 1 or 2 hours had passed. It's been so long. Now, the light and shadow have completely disappeared. Opening his eyes again and looking at the whole world, it is even more different. Advancing in Dao realm. Maybe, if I have enough Dao Yuan Shen pills now, I should be able to advance 1 or 2 realms, Wu Yu said. So big, Ming Long was very surprised. However, Wu Yu frowned slightly and said, Ming Long, why am I here and meet him? To be precise, it's something he left behind, a mark, or something else. After all, this is an immortal. Then why did you appear here? Ming Long rolled his eyes and said, how should I know? I don't know more about this Monkey King than you. Now I'm also wondering, why didn't I encounter such a thing at the beginning? Why do I feel that you are luckier than me? Why am I killed, but you are still alive? It sounds like she is very unhappy. Wu Yu smiled and said, the answer is obvious. The great sage and I are both men, but you are a bitch. The genders don't match. When Ming Long heard this, he was so angry that his eyelids rolled up and he grinned, saying, Wu Yu, you are so brave. It's just a dick. Do you believe I can break you? I believe it, haha. Ming Long has no body now, so Wu Yu is certainly not afraid of him. Except for the light and shadow from the galaxy, Wu Yu never saw anything else here. His clones traveled around the sea of clouds and saw nothing else. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. So, he was going back. At least, he could go to the other 3 peaks to have a look. It took a few days to come down from the passage again, and soon he arrived at the fork. In fact, in this passage, you can smell the scent of immortals. One of the peaks is where many immortals exist, and the smell is the strongest in the passage. Let's go here first. The old method, he still let the clones come out together. The previous mountain was not dangerous, and the place he was going to now should not be dangerous either. Coming to this fork, and then falling into these peaks, it was much faster. Not long after, Wu Yu and many clones came out of this lightning passage and quickly dispersed to the mountain full of immortal smell. Soon, Wu Yu found the difference between this place and the previous mountain. The Taoist scroll was hidden in the palace before. Fairies are naturally planted on the ground and in the mountains and forests. Therefore, there are very few palaces on this mountain, only about 200. You can also see what is inside through the cracks in the door, which are jade bottles. What's in the bottle? Fairy seeds, Ming Long said casually. These seeds, planted in places with rich spiritual energy, should be able to grow good fairies. Of course, these palaces are also inaccessible. However, the focus of this mountain is not on the palaces, but on the fairy gardens. All kinds of fairies are planted in the gardens with the richest spiritual energy at the top of this mountain. There are about hundreds of fairy gardens of all sizes in this mountain. After Wu Yu's clones dispersed, basically one clone stood around a fairy garden. Basically, all the fairy gardens are already under his eyes. He hasn't seen whether he can pick these fairies yet. However, just looking at it with your eyes is enough to shock you, because there are tens of thousands of fairies in these hundreds of fairy gardens. Every fairy garden is full of fairies. For countless years, no one has picked them. Perhaps, the people in this place disappeared suddenly, so the Taoist scrolls are still there, and the fairies are still there. And they are still growing very lush. Not only are there fairies everywhere, but basically they all have 7 or 8 spiritual patterns. Even fairies with 6 spiritual patterns are rare. Tens of thousands of top-level fairies, even in the Yanhuang ancient domain, any force will be crazy about this. These fairies can even refine a large number of high-level elixirs. Some fairies can also be used directly. There are too many to take in. Wu Yu can only see the spiritual patterns of many fairies, but can't call out their names. Perhaps such fairies have become extinct in the world of Yanfu. There are very few who can call out their names. This is the hidden flower, this is the Kaiulan grass, this is the life-chasing poison fragrance. It is precisely because there are so many precious immortals that even at the foot of this thunderous peak, one can vaguely smell the scent. Now, he and all his clones just want to know whether he can pick these immortals. If so, it would be a big profit, simply, rich enough to rival a country. 8-line immortals are relatively rare in the entire Yama world, and there are thousands of them here. But Wu Yu was still very calm in his heart, because he knew that it was not so easy to get treasures in the world. Even the Fusion Tower and the one long stick were obtained by him at the cost of a lot of time and energy, and at the risk of his life. He asked a clone in front of him to walk towards the immortal garden in front of him. The clone was very cautious. At this time, he walked to the fence surrounding the immortal garden and stretched out his hand to see if he could penetrate it. Sure enough, when his hand touched the top of the fence, he touched the barrier. A wave of ripples shook. A hemispherical barrier covers the entire fairy garden. I believe there is another hemispherical barrier underground, which is basically a spherical barrier that covers the entire fairy garden. Moreover, it is the same barrier as the Wangxiantai. Sure enough. Because there was not much hope at the beginning, Wu Yu could accept this result. He asked other clones to try it, and found that all the fairy gardens were protected by the barrier, and this was a barrier that could not be entered or left. Wangxiantai, you can still enter. It's not easy to get the things here. Wu Yu didn't rush to leave. He came to the only fairy with 9 spiritual patterns in this mountain. This fairy has a garden alone. This is a big tree, standing at the top of this mountain. Wu Yu just came down from here. He was going to take a look at the remaining 2 mountains, but this fairy with 9 spiritual patterns still made it difficult for Wu Yu to move his feet. Name, the Great Dao Pregnant God Tree. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 653. The Great Avenue Goddess of Pregnancy Tree stands at the highest point of the mountain. The surrounding fence forms a circle, surrounding this avenue of pregnancy trees. A fence is also the boundary of a barrier. This should also be a barrier created by an ultimate magic circle. Have you tried this kind of barrier before? There is no way to break through it, so don't waste time here and hurry up to the remaining 2 peaks, Ming Long said. This is the truth. However, Wu Yu still couldn't move away when he saw hundreds of fruits on the great god of pregnancy tree. It is a kind of fruit that is similar to an apple, but is pure white and crystal clear like jade. It is crystal clear. The pulp inside is glowing with a holy light. It can be clearly seen that a large amount of spiritual essence has directly become a liquid. The pulp is flowing and fragrant. If you smell it for a while, you will feel refreshed and longevity. This is definitely a good thing, and its value exceeds that of most of the fairies in this mountain peak. Ming Long told him before, this is the Great Way pregnancy fruit, which grows on the Great Way pregnancy tree with 9 spiritual lines. A single fruit has 8 spiritual lines. The great function of the Great Way pregnancy tree is actually to grow this kind of fruit, which is abundant in quantity. As long as the tree is continuous and immortal, there is enough aura of heaven and earth, the earth's veins and spiritual accumulation, and enough time, the Great Way pregnancy fruit can be produced. I don't know how many years have passed, but this Great Avenue pregnancy tree is still alive, and the number of Great Avenue pregnancy fruits produced is hundreds, which is so densely packed. This kind of Dao pregnant god fruit is produced by fruit trees. It is actually very pure. It is the kind that can be directly consumed and refined without refining into elixirs. The effect is much better than that of the Dao Yuan Shen Dan. It's more pure than pills. There are hundreds of them here. If you can get them, it won't be a problem to reach a higher realm based on your previous understanding. Wu Yu is now in urgent need of Dao Yuan Shen pills. Otherwise, based on the progress of the Dao that he just realized above the sea of clouds, he only needs enough pills to make rapid progress, which is not a problem. However, the great Dao Yuan Shen pill is probably only available to the 9 people below, and it is impossible for Wu Yu to steal it from them, so this aspect can basically be cut off. So, he didn't think much about it. However, on this fairy mountain peak, there is a weapon with better effect. It can absorb a large amount of spiritual energy from it without even refining the elixir, and expand the vast sea of Zi Mansion. In fact, most fairy spirits can be taken directly, but this is a bit wasteful. Refining them into elixirs can be worth several times the value. It's just that the great god of pregnancy fruit, produced by the god of pregnancy tree, is very pure in itself and has an effect comparable to that of elixirs. Taking it directly will not be too wasteful. What a pity, this damn magic circle and barrier. At the moment when the Tao realm is progressing by leaps and bounds, it is the lack of these elixirs and fairy resources that makes it difficult for Wu Yu to make progress now. The opportunity to become stronger quickly is right in front of you, but it's a pity that it's separated by the gap between heaven and earth. Don't waste time, let's go, Ming Tong urged. Wu Yu stared at the great avenue pregnancy fruits that were very close at hand, with various thoughts changing in his mind. He was still unwilling. There is really no possibility to let me in. He racked his brains and quickly analyzed the things on his body. First of all, it was the infinite 10,000 dragon sticks, which had immeasurable power in the world and was extremely powerful. However, Wu Yu had tried many times, and no matter how powerful it was, he could not break it. Barrier. Where's the fusion tower? Suddenly I thought of fusion tower. When we were at Wangxiantai, we didn't want to expose the fusion tower, so we didn't test it with the fusion tower at first. By the way, Ming Long, the fusion tower was still effective when we were in the mausoleum. Do you think it is possible for the fusion tower to pass through this barrier? After all, fusion tower is quite mysterious. Ming Long curled his lips and said, how do I know? I can only say that the possibility is very small. In the mausoleum, the fusion tower is not suppressed by the magic circle, and the suppression is ineffective. But here, the fusion tower has to take the initiative to pass through. This array barrier is not the same. Mingtaki didn't think there was much hope. In the spirit of trying more, Wu Yu won't lose anything anyway. He took out the floating life tower and summoned the demon flame god general. After so much recuperation, the demon flame god general was destroyed before, and now it has returned to normal. Wu Yu gave the demon flame general an instruction. He first entered the floating tower himself, and then asked the demon flame general to hold the floating tower with both hands and thrust the top of the tower toward the barrier. If this attempt fails, try your luck on the next mountain. Wu Yu was in a very calm mood, but he knew that it was very likely that he would not gain anything after completing the 4 peaks. However, he and the people below have reached a point where they will fight to the death. One long stick and fusion pagoda made them see that it was impossible to let go of this matter. In fact, he was lucky enough to encounter the things left by the Monkey King, so Wu Yu didn't have too many extravagant hopes. Call. The spire of the fusion tower was inserted into the barrier. What Wu Yu never expected, and what was a huge surprise in his heart, was that he actually passed through it. The demon flame god general failed to come in, but he pierced the floating tower through the barrier and smashed it into the fairy garden. Bang! The fusion tower rolled several times on the ground. Floating tower passed through the barrier. Wu Yu was completely stunned. This shows that the floating life tower is far more magical than he imagined. Perhaps, he has underestimated fusion tower so far. Holy shit, no, even Ming Long shouted, with a look of disbelief on his face. No matter how hard it was to believe, now was a great opportunity. Wu Yu rushed out of the floating life tower without saying a word. The moment he rushed out, he split into hundreds of clones, and the clones suddenly filled the entire fairy garden. Each clone is basically aiming at a fruit. Picking fairy spirits must be done quickly no matter what. It's hard to get such an opportunity, so naturally the sooner the better. Only when you get it can it be real. In an instant, Wu Yu's clones plucked hundreds of Grand Avenue pregnancy fruits. Go quickly and come back quickly. All the clones came back with the Great Avenue pregnancy fruit. Wu Yu stood there, opened the Sumuru bag, and put all these treasures in. He was pretending and laughing at the same time. I don't know how refreshing it is. This feeling of harvest is really refreshing. I have been feeling so frustrated when facing these magic circles and barriers before, but now I am finally relieved. You are so lucky. There is this floating tower. All the fairies in the fairy garden belong to you. Ming Long was also dumbfounded. She also loves money. Even if it has nothing to do with her at this time, she does. I was jumping up and down with excitement, my eyes were shining, and I wanted to come up and get some. Yes, there are other fairies, Wu Yu was reminded by her, and then he remembered that what he had gained today was not just this, there were hundreds of fairy gardens here. He was about to summon another puppet and throw himself and the floating tower out. After all, he couldn't control the floating tower now, he could only enter and exit or summon puppets. Wait a minute, dig up this avenue pregnancy tree. This is a valuable treasure. If you get it out, even if there is no place to plant it, you can still sell it for a big price. Ming Long was still shrewd and would not miss anything. She has a point. Wu Yu hurriedly dug the soil. He took out a few swords and used the sword control technique to insert them deeply into the ground. For a while, these swords loosened the soil within the barrier. Wu Yu took out the Sumuru bag, opened it to the maximum, and then, using the method of heaven and earth, he changes his body to the maximum, walks to the tree trunk, hugs the tree trunk with his huge body, and with a low roar, he wants to pull up the tree. The Great Way Pregnancy Tree is a fairy spirit and can only be protected. There is no resistance at all. With Wu Yu's current physical strength, it can be said that it is easy to uproot the Great Way Pregnancy Tree from the ground. Boom! There was a loud bang. Wu Yu had just pulled out the great divine pregnancy tree and was feeling happy. He was about to send it into the Sumuru bag. Unexpectedly, the earth suddenly shook. It's just a tree being pulled out. Why is there such a big movement? Wu Yu originally thought it was just a normal movement after the big tree was pulled out. What he didn't expect was that the scale of the shaking was far beyond his imagination. Boom boom boom. He was still holding the great divine pregnancy tree, but he didn't expect that at this moment, the entire mountain peak was collapsing. He looked at it with piercing eyes and was immediately frightened. How could it be possible? At this juncture, he quickly pushed the great way pregnancy tree into the Sumuru bag, and put away the Sumuru bag and the floating life tower. This mountain is going to collapse, and the magic circle barrier has disappeared. Ming Long was also completely stunned. The reason why the barrier of the magic array disappeared was because there were mud and stones from outside that were shot in, and Wu Yu summoned him a little, and the demonic flame general appeared in front of him. He came in easily, and Wu Yu let him return to the floating life tower. Go to other peaks and enter the passage quickly, Ming Long reacted first and said quickly. What Wu Yu saw at this moment was the collapse of the entire fairy mountain, from top to bottom. During this collapse process, the palace and the fairy garden were all torn apart, and those precious fairy spirits were instantly destroyed. The rocks and soil were submerged, making Wu Yu extremely depressed. My fairy spirit, Ming Tong was about to cry. It was just a tree uprooting. It didn't take such a big movement to cause the entire mountain to collapse. Now it seems that those fairy spirits are not available for the time being, and the mountain peak has collapsed completely. Now, the only chance was to go to the other three peaks. Wu Yu acted quickly as Ming Long reminded him. However, what he didn't expect was that not only the mountain collapsed, but the lightning network covering the mountain also underwent huge changes. As the mountain collapsed, the lightning network was also pressed downwards, basically with the collapse of the mountain. The previous passage has long since disappeared. These purple thunderbolts were deadly. Seeing these thunderbolts coming down, Wu Yu had no choice but to go down. The road is broken. It's all your fault. Why did you pull out the tree? Ming Long quit, and all the treasures she got ran away. She was so angry that her eyes were burning. However, she said so herself. Wu Yu followed the collapsing mountain peak and quickly smashed down to avoid the lightning pressing down from above. During this process, he suddenly saw Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 654. What Wu Yu saw was that not only this fairy mountain, but also the other 6 mountains were collapsing. This was spectacular. It was like 7 giant thunder swords inserted at the highest point of the thunder giant peak, breaking one after another and collapsing with a loud bang. It is estimated that the 9 people on the Wangxian terrace would feel even more shocked by this scene. After all, from their perspective, the collapse of the 7 surrounding mountains was even more earth-shattering. Pulling out a tree caused all 7 mountains to collapse. This result made Wu Yu speechless. However, he estimated that it might not be because of pulling out the tree, but because he entered the barrier, causing the changes in the magic array of the 7 mountains to self-destruct. Perhaps, this was the design of some ancestor. In any case, Wu Yu had obtained hundreds of Dao Yinshan fruits and a Dao Yinshan tree, which was already a huge harvest. Even if there are still so many Immortals and Taoist scrolls, they will soon be buried by the mountains and soil, and the lightning network above the head will collapse, but maybe these things can be dug up. The other 2 peaks are now collapsed, and there may be treasures. There is always a way out. The important thing is to ensure your own safety when these 7 peaks collapse. At this time, you may be able to use the ancient immortal road to leave directly. However, after getting so many Dao Yinshan fruits, Wu Yu is not ready to leave. At this time, the sky collapsed and the purple thunder above the head pressed very close. Wu Yu directly changed direction and rushed down. There were purple thunders all around, which was extremely thrilling. His fiery eyes searched quickly, trying to find a safe place. If it didn't work, he might hide in the fusion tower. Although he might be buried, he could still get out later. Soon, he locked a place. Wangxiantai. Because he saw that the rocks fell over the Wangxian terrace, but did not enter the Wangxian terrace, but made the barrier of the Wangxian terrace bounce out directly. At this time, the magic arrays and barriers on the 7 peaks had failed, but the barrier of the Wangxian terrace still existed, and no matter how the 7 peaks collapsed at this time, the Wangxian terrace in the center of the 7 peaks still had a feeling of being motionless. Perhaps, that is the only safe place. Go there. Wu Yu did not hesitate and rushed down quickly. In fact, the speed of the lightning and thunder chasing behind him was already very fast, but he was still faster and escaped from the dangerous area. Before being suppressed and hit by the rocks and lightning, he rushed into the Wangxian terrace like a meteor in the sky. Boom boom boom. The next moment he came in, the 7 peaks collapsed completely and smashed on the top of the Thunder Giant Peak. The entire Wangxian terrace was buried by mud and rocks in a short period of time. Anyway, now inside the Wangxian terrace, outside the barrier, there should be endless mud and rocks from the 7 peaks. If Wu Yu had not chosen this place, he would probably be directly covered by mud. If there were enough and heavy mud, he might be crushed directly. At least now, there is still room for movement. At this time, the top of the Wangxian terrace was pitch black, but the white jade under his feet still emitted a hazy light, illuminating everything in the Wangxian terrace. Back again. However, this time, his mood was different. Wu Yu suddenly fell here, and the huge force and speed made him half squat. At this time, when he stood up and raised his head, he saw 9 people looking at him in shock. It has been more than 10 days, and they are still trapped here. Under the threat of the electric snake, they can't move an inch. They can only wait here and seek a solution, but the result is still cruel. Just when they were desperate and thought they might be trapped here for the rest of their lives, they didn't expect that the sky would suddenly collapse and the earth would crack, which made them even more depressed. In the blink of an eye, the immortal watching platform was buried. Although the threatening electric snake was gone, it seemed that there was no possibility of getting out. Then, they saw Wu Yu falling from the sky. Wu Yu was still the same, his realm was still the purple mansion Kanghai realm, pitifully weak, and far behind the heroic people like Princess Yuxiang and Prince Feng. They all had a kind of momentum and majesty that was above all living beings under the long-term cultivation of super forces. They were powerful without anger, and they didn't need to take action. A glance or movement could scare the enemy to death. Before, Wu Yu was afraid of them, especially worried that they would target Dongsheng Shenzhou and his relatives. After all, he had no background and no one to rely on. But everything was different from the moment he went up to the lightning cloud sea. These 8 people, not counting Wang Zhigzun, plus the Eternal Shark and Emperor Yu, are the strongest and most prestigious people who came into the ancient immortal road this time. Now, when they were at a loss, they saw Wu Yu again. For a moment, everyone's eyes became hot again. Among them, Princess Yuxing asked directly, "Wu Yu, this movement, the collapse of 7 mountains, can't it be related to you? What did you get from there?" Before this, they had been thinking about Wu Yu all the time, and were even more worried that he would get more treasures from there. Now they are not worried, but excited, because Wu Yu is right in front of them. "What a joke, if I can make such a big noise, I can still hide here," Wu Yu responded coldly. Looking at their oppressive and aggressive eyes at this moment, and thinking about how they treated him before, Wu Yu knew what they were thinking now. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Regardless of whether they can get out or not, they all want to divide Wu Yu first, because he is a weak person, but he has a treasure. Don't waste time talking nonsense with him. No matter what he got up there, it's useless to ask. I think the rules and battles we set up before can continue, Prince Feng sneered. Yes, no matter what he has, just kill him and put the things out, and you will know, whether it is the upper spiritual tool, the magical little tower before, or what he may have got up there. I suggest killing people first, and then according to the treasure, everyone will compete fairly. Maybe, we can give rewards to the top 3 among the 8 of us, Juxing Xueqi said arrogantly without being polite. Feng Jianqing, the son of the eternal sword Dao, rarely spoke. At this time, he said, I also agree to kill him. We should distribute the treasures fairly and let strength speak for itself. Those who agree, raise your hands. Anyway, there is no way out now, so let's divide the treasures first. These words did not take Wu Yu's life seriously at all. Qing Wu Yunxi nodded, looked at Wu Yu with pity, and said, you didn't take the road to heaven, and you broke into hell. It's all your fault. How can such a good thing belong to you? We threatened you with Dongsheng Shenzhou, but you didn't listen. Now, not only will we kill you, but those who didn't get the treasures in the future may be angry and take their anger out on your relatives. It's really pitiful. Wu Yu listened to them calmly. The Emperor Tree Demon also said, okay, I agree. Let's set up the reward first, and then the 8 of us will fight fairly. This is the best way to avoid a melee, and everyone will be convinced. Finally, it was Princess Yuyan. Seeing that everyone else agreed, she shook her head helplessly at Wu Yu and said, you are just too stubborn. You can't see your own status clearly. You are not qualified to compete with us. I think you should just hand over all the things and explain them clearly. Maybe we can discuss it and spare your life. When Wang Zhixun heard this, he became anxious and said, don't spare his life. Maybe he will take revenge in the future. After all, he is talented. If he doesn't die, how can I get the ancient immortal talisman? Wu Yu, we don't have much patience. I'll give you 3 breaths of time, Princess Yuyan said in a cold voice. This arrogant feeling again. This last sentence made Wu Yu make a decision. He suddenly smiled and said, you guys really don't treat me as a human being. You don't respect me at all. Is it so thorough? The other party laughed, and Prince Feng said, who do you think you are? Why should I treat you as a human being? He is really tough. Don't waste time. If you don't kill people, I will. Don't worry that I will steal the treasure first. 9-star Snow Chi stepped forward and pressed towards Wu Yu. When the others heard this, they dared not slack off in such matters, for fear that someone would steal the treasure, so none of them fell behind, and all pressed towards Wu Yu. Each of them sacrificed a Taoist weapon, and even Wang Zhixun was a little eager to try such a battle. Wu Yu shook his head and still smiled and said, you guys, you have forced me into a dead end, but you will regret it. Puff. Everyone was amused when they heard this. Trash, go to hell. Prince Feng attacked first, turned into a ghost, and came swiftly. Others attacked one after another, and in a blink of an eye, there was a shocking murderous intent. Okay, I've decided. Wu Yu made this decision because they forced him to do so. He had actually been waiting for this moment for a long time. Their action was a declaration of a true fight to the death. At this moment, Wu Yu suddenly sacrificed the floating life tower, summoned the demon flame god general, and entered it. The demon flame god general stood in front and thrust the floating life tower back. The floating life tower successfully passed through the barrier and pierced into the soil outside the barrier, and only the tower base could be seen. Bang bang bang. In a flash, the demon flame god general's small body was torn to pieces by them. If Wu Yu hadn't taken action just now, he would have been shattered now. What happened now simply made the 9 people even more stunned. He is going out. They were trapped here, and after using all the methods, they couldn't get out. For them, leaving is even more important than taking the treasure. And now, Wu Yu had actually gone out from inside the floating life tower. They rushed to attack this location, but they could not reach the floating life tower outside the barrier. And Wu Yu never came out again. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 655. Chapter 649, Strength Surges. The floating life tower was buried in the soil, and everyone in the Wangxiantai could only stare blankly. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. No matter how depressed, scolding, entangled, or furious they were, Wu Yu could not hear them. He entered the floating life tower. No matter how the sky and the earth were breaking outside, the floating life tower was still fine and peaceful. Wu Yu sat cross-legged in the center of the floating life tower. The threats outside were put behind his mind at this moment. He took out the sumuru bag, put it in the palm of his hand, and opened it. The Dao Yunchen fruit inside flew out and piled up around him in this floating life tower. It was everywhere. Suddenly, the floating life tower was filled with a rich fragrance. This fairy fragrance was refreshing. Leave a few for my sister. Wu Yu put away a few and thought of Wu Yu. His mind became more determined. He would never let Wu Yu, Dongsheng Shenzhou, relatives and friends suffer any harm. Pick up the Dao Yunchen fruit and look at it carefully. This pure white and crystal clear fruit has 8 mysterious spiritual patterns on it. From a distance, it looks a bit like a few large pearls. When it is close to the eyes, it is simply fragrant. Through the skin, the spiritual essence inside is surging, like a vast ocean, deep and thick. A light bite opened a gap, and the Dao Yunchen fruit directly turned into a stream of cool liquid, entered the stomach, and then instantly spread to the limbs and bones, and even every part of the body. At this moment, it was like falling into a cool cold pond on a scorching summer day, feeling refreshed and as if ascending to heaven. But I didn't expect that after the initial coolness, the droplets that spread to every corner of the body became as hot as if they were burning. It is said that this Dao Yunchen fruit can also nourish the Yuan Shen, so Wu Yu is not only in a physical body, but also in a burning furnace with his soul. Buzz. There is no fire on his body, but the surging power explodes. The power of this Dao Yunchen fruit is much stronger than the Dao Yuan Shen pill. Ordinary people can't digest it. The first sacrifice almost exceeded Wu Yu's limit. Fortunately, he has recently gained a huge realm improvement and a strong physical body. Soon, he suppressed this explosive power with his willpower, combined it with his own improved Dao realm, and infused it into the purple mansion sea. Under this tyrannical support, his purple mansion sea was like a long drought meeting sweet dew, madly absorbing the medicinal power of this Dao Yunchen fruit, which was used by Wu Yu like swallowing, and easily digested and used to expand his own purple mansion sea. On the one hand, it is a firm belief, and on the other hand, it is a huge state of mind that is accidentally improved. It took less than 60 breaths in total. Then, Wu Yu began to sacrifice the second and third. For him, this period of time was boring, but also fulfilling, because he was growing rapidly every moment, and his purple mansion sea was expanding at a speed that was almost visible to the naked eye. The sea was becoming more and more vast, and it was raining heavily on the sea at any time. This heavy rain was the crystallization of Wu Yu's understanding of the Tao and the Dao Yunchen fruit. At the same time, although he did not form a soul, his soul became stronger and stronger under the nourishment of the Dao Yunchen fruit. There were too many people at the same level. Ming Long said that he wanted to split out a second soul and cultivate the body of the devouring demon ancestor. At that time, the soul itself needed to be stronger than others, the stronger the better. It was originally similar to ordinary people. Now there are so many Dao Yunchen fruits. If this continues, his second soul and second body will be successful, and there will basically be no problem. Maybe he only needs to be 3 or 4 times stronger than ordinary people in this realm, but Wu Yu has the level now. By then, maybe he can reach 10 times, or even more. The other half of the effect of the Dao Yunshan fruit is invisible now, but when he achieves the Yuan Shen, there will definitely be explosive progress. The floating life tower is quiet. But the raging waves in Wu Yu's body have not calmed down for a long time. The purple mansion sea is constantly expanding and growing. Before, with the guidance of the Monkey King, even if he sacrificed more Dao Yunshan fruit, his realm is still very stable. At least for now, he has expanded the purple mansion sea a lot, but it is far from his current limit. He still has many Daos and many fields that can be used to build this perfect, vast purple mansion sea. When all the more than 80 Dao Yunshan fruits were instilled into the purple mansion sea, Wu Yu broke through himself, crossed the limit again, and rushed to the 8th level of the purple mansion sea. This realm, I remember, is the realm of Shushan's sword master. I remember that when I first met Shenzhen Jiao, he just rushed to this realm. I didn't expect that I really succeeded. But in fact, he is much stronger now than Shenzhen Jiao at that time. It's not the same level at all. Not much time has passed, Wu Yu knows how incredible this is. Maybe the elders of Dongsheng Shenzhou can't imagine that he has reached such a level. Now Wu Yu, according to his own guess, should be almost the same as Taixu Saint Lord. When he left, he was not an opponent of the Yuan Shen realm. Wu Yu has indeed made great progress, and now he is also a strong man. He is even a top genius in the entire Yanfu world. In the Teiku Immortal Road, he was upgraded from a genius at the Dongsheng Shenzhou level to the Yanfu world level. The concept is completely different. However, he is still not satisfied with his current self. Progress is so fast. What do you want now? Do you want to learn the fourth magical power, or challenge your guardian puppet? Generally, after improving his level, Wu Yu would first challenge the puppets to increase his opponents. But now we have reached the 8th level, which is the time to practice the fourth magical power. There are 3 magical powers in the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. When you reach the 8th level, you enter the final stage of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. Going further down, the Kanghai realm is complete and the soul is about to condense. Minglong was about to use his fourth magical power to tease Wu Yu. After all, Wu Yu had been terrifyingly calm during this period, and he didn't joke at all. Unexpectedly, Wu Yu replied, "I'm not in a hurry. Especially magical powers are too time-consuming. Now, there is still so much time." Minglong looked shocked and said, "If you say that, are you really prepared to?" "That's right. This is the best time and opportunity. If you miss this time, you will always be passive," Wu Yu said decisively. Minglong originally thought that he was just joking, but he didn't expect that he really made such a decision, and judging from the current situation, there was no possibility of wavering at all. "I have to say, this is a big move of yours. Once it succeeds, the shock it will cause will be stronger than what I had done before." Wu Yu shook his head and said, "No one will know." "That's right," Minglong nodded. She knew that it was precisely because of what Wu Yu said that she could tell that his courage was not comparable to that of ordinary people. However, this is not easy. In a battle of wits and courage, it is not certain who will win. "Don't be careless first," Minglong reminded. "Don't worry, as long as I don't lose in terms of strength, I can't lose in other aspects." Wu Yu's eyes were firm, and no words he said seemed to be able to shake him. The decision he made was to continue to expand Zifu Kanghai. The 8th level is not his goal. His goal is the 9th level. There are still more than 200 Dao pregnancy fruits left, which is Wu Yu's capital. In fact, since ancient times, no one has been able to completely digest so many Dao pregnancy fruits in such a short period of time without affecting the foundation at all. "Wu Yu, this is also a challenge that has never existed before." He didn't say much and continued with this boring process. "This time, it will take much longer. The level of unbearability has increased several times. There are many more problems and errors than before. These are all problems facing Wu Yu. However, this did not scare him. There is a place called Sendai. If we don't decide life and death, I would be sorry for myself, and also for my relatives and friends. It's not that I'm unkind, it's that they are unjust. Since they forced me to this point, why should I endure it anymore? Except for the 10,000 dragon stick, the floating life tower, and the fairy spirit I got, I don't want anyone to know about it. Those threats and contempt are still vivid in my mind. I remember their faces very clearly. All of these are the reasons that support Wu Yu. He wanted to give up several times, but still fought hard and persisted. Finally, after persisting day and night, Zifu continued to expand, booming in the heavy rain, and the scale of Zifu Yuanli greatly increased. When there were only a dozen Dao divine pregnancy fruits left around him, he succeeded. He rushed into the 9th level of Zifu Kanghai realm. Lift up twice in a row. In this realm, to be able to reach this point, there are 3 things that are indispensable. 1. Is naturally the guide of the Monkey King. 2nd, it is the unimaginable Dao pregnancy fruit, and the quantity is sufficient. The 3rd is Wu Yu's desire to win, his belief in surviving a desperate situation, and his determination to fight to the death. The 3 are combined into one, and the strength is greatly improved. This progress is unprecedented and commendable. For him, this is a turning point in his life, a critical point. The huge progress this time allowed him to truly have the right to speak to himself and his relatives in the future, instead of someone appearing to threaten Wu Yu. The weakest Zifu Yuanli has reached the 9th level, and is not far away from the state of Yuan Shen's transformation. My progress will surprise Luo Bin. I am getting closer and closer to her. Of course Wu Yu would never forget her, and would always think about looking for him again. But right now, he has more important things to do. That is, put the previous decision into action. Of course, before taking action, he had to do something that wouldn't waste much time. That is, looking for helpers. The helper is the puppet guard. Chapter today will be added later. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 656. The time of 1 year from the ancient immortal road is actually getting closer and closer. There is one thing Wu Yu must complete, so he needs to do it as soon as possible. Although the floating life tower saved half of the time this time, a lot of time has passed. Moreover, Wu Yu is also worried that they will suddenly find a way to get out of the floating life tower. There is no time to practice magical powers for the time being. The clones do not have elixirs or immortals that can make them stronger. Now the only means to quickly enhance is the puppet guards of the floating life tower. Wu Yu has already thought about what he wants to do. When his realm was rapidly improved to the 9th level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm, he was unprecedentedly strong and challenged the puppets of the floating life tower again. In fact, the light and shadow of the Monkey King before led him to a very important section of the road. Wu Yu's insights were beyond imagination. So he can even impact the 10th level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm now? For Tao, Wu Yu's current pure realm exceeds many people of the same realm, even the Yuan Shen realm. Of course, everything still needs to be a little more cyclical and gradual. The current realm is enough. In the flawless floating life tower, Wu Yu held the one long stick that others dreamed of. The one long stick full of dragon reliefs was now flying up and down in his hand, as if countless dragons were covering Wu Yu, making dragon roars and whistles. Invisibly, the degree of adaptation between him and the one long stick has been rising steadily. The one long stick also recognized the status of its owner more. Some of the materials of the Demon Flame God General were divided up by them at the Wangxiantai, and the Demon Flame God General could not be taken back for the time being. The puppet guard played a huge role, and the demon flame god general had made great contributions. Wu Yu would not let it be separated and lie in the sumi bag of others. Once again, in front of him, the 9 puppet arrays appeared, with 9 colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, and white, competing for brilliance. Because Wu Yu had successively improved 2 realms, the original puppets, red and orange, had been replaced. In the black and white array, new and more powerful puppets appeared. Sure enough, there is no end to the puppets in the floating life tower for the time being. Among these 9 puppets, the most powerful puppet in the white magic circle corresponds to the 7th level of the Yuan Shen Huaxing realm. If Wu Yu can possess it, he will definitely sweep across the ancient immortal road. Of course, that means that if Wu Yu can defeat it, he will have a stronger strength than it. At that time, he can sweep across the ancient immortal road and surpass Le Daizi and others. What he wants to challenge this time is the puppet in the black magic circle. In fact, the huge steel puppet in the purple magic circle is equivalent to the 5th level of the Yuan Shen Huaxing realm, and Wu Yu did not challenge it. But it doesn't matter, he only needs to defeat the puppet in the black magic circle, and he can directly control this puppet. Strange, why are there 2 puppets in this black magic circle? Ming Long suddenly had a question. Wu Yu also saw that the puppets in the black magic circle did not appear last time. This is their first appearance. The 2 puppets were thin and long, like 2 bamboo poles. They were not very clear in the magic circle, but one could barely see one black and one white. Across the magic circle, one could feel a chilling ghostly aura. It should be that these 2 combined are equivalent to the most basic 6th level combat power of the Yuan Shen Huaxing realm. Otherwise, if they appeared at the same time, the challenge would be too difficult. There were no other 2 of them. However, no matter how many there were, they could not block Wu Yu's way at this time. He resolutely walked towards the black magic circle, crossing 7 huge levels again, challenging this puppet opponent, which was considered quite precious even in the Yanhuang ancient domain. When Wu Yu walked towards the black magic circle with a focused expression, the other magic circles and puppets sank together under the fusion tower. One day, I will completely master the floating life tower, and there will be no need to challenge at all. All puppets can be used by me. In the end, only the black magic circle was shining, and the strange black light enveloped it. In a moment, darkness and eerie ghost energy engulfed the floating life tower, and then in another moment, the darkness disappeared. After the magic circle disappeared, Wu Yu saw his 2 opponents clearly. It turned out to be the black and white impermanence. Wu Yu was a little shocked. In front of him, there should be 2 puppets made in the shape of the black and white impermanence in folk legends. Although they are made of precious steel materials, they actually look like they have flesh and blood. One is black and the other is white. They are both wearing long robes and long pointed hats. Each of them has a tongue more than 1 foot long hanging on their mouths. Looking more carefully, the whole body of the 2, including the skin, is one pitch black and the other pale. The pitch black one is cold and sharp, with ghosts around him, as if he will disappear at any time and appear around him again to perform a killing move. The pale one had a smile on his face, ghostly and cold, and this smile seemed to be able to see through all your thoughts and make you shudder. This was completely made according to the appearance of the black and white impermanence, so let's call them the black and white impermanence. It can be seen that they have many and sophisticated magic arrays on their bodies. The value of such puppets is actually close to that of a spiritual Taoist weapon. Among them, the black impermanence had a black iron chain wrapped around his hands, like a poisonous snake. This should be made according to the legendary soul-catching rope. At the same time, the nails on his hands were like blades, 2 inches long and very sharp. It is estimated that any Taoist weapon can penetrate it. The white impermanence held a big stick in his hand, like the legendary morning stick. It was also very heavy, especially the end of the stick, which had cones drilled out. One stick down, like Wu Yu's one long stick, could make people bleed. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. These two puppets, if they don't make a move, just standing there, are like the real black and white impermanence, which can scare people to death. But, they can't scare Wu Yu. Immortal Ape Transformation. Law of Heaven and Earth. Wu Yu's fighting spirit was surging at this time, and the fighting will in his heart was unprecedented. The black and white impermanence just caught up with this time. At this time, Wu Yu not only transformed into a violent golden ape in the Immortal Ape Transformation, which was rough and fierce, but also his body changed to the maximum, with the most terrifying power. Holding the infinite one long stick in the world, just looking at his appearance, it was a feeling of destroying the world. The black and white impermanence said nothing, and saw that Wu Yu was ready, so he took action directly. When they moved, there were actually tens of thousands of magic arrays running at the same time. Buzz. The black impermanence was very fast. I don't know what magic array he used. When he moved, the entire fusion tower was full of his after-image. If Wu Yu didn't have a sharp eye, it would be difficult to find his real position. As for the white impermanence, his whole body was covered with dazzling white light. The white light swept across, also blocking the line of sight and affecting perception. Since they were together, the degree of coordination was of course very high. The two of them used their own methods at the first time. For example, although Wu Yu could see the position of the black impermanence clearly, after the transformation of the law of heaven and earth, his speed dropped a lot, and he couldn't react for a while. The black impermanence, treating him as a huge monster, suddenly appeared behind Wu Yu, swung the soul-catching rope in his hand outward, and suddenly wrapped Wu Yu's neck from behind, clenched his hands, and kicked his legs under the black robe on Wu Yu's back, pulling at a distance. On his body, black lightnings rushed towards Wu Yu along the soul-catching rope. The lightnings were like poisonous snakes, crackling and whistling. In front of Wu Yu, Bai Vuchang appeared directly in front of him. The huge crying stick shone with dazzling white light. This light was enough to blind many people, but the striking power contained in the crying stick was the core of Bai Vuchang's attack. One blockade, one attack. It was quite routine. However, Wu Yu at this time was not so easy to be defeated by their cooperation. Change. His magical power of the law of heaven and earth can become bigger or smaller. After changing to the maximum, he was entangled by the opponent's soul-catching rope, and he instantly became smaller, to the extreme, only 1 foot high. This change speed was too fast. Wu Yu directly jumped out of the entanglement of Bai Vuchang. This was when he was at his fastest speed. Boom! Wu Yu's sudden change almost caused Bai Vuchang's big stick to hit Bai Vuchang's head. The free body shape change of Fa Tian Xiang Di brought great creativity to Wu Yu's battle. When he escaped from the attack of Bai Vuchang and quickly reached Bai Vuchang, he became a giant again in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the one long stick drew an amazing trajectory in the air. Boom! They resisted together, but were still blown away by Wu Yu's huge force. In this first round of confrontation, Wu Yu had the upper hand. However, this is just the beginning of the battle. There is no shortcut or death battle in the battle with Bai Vuchang. These two puppets cooperated in attacking and killing, which was indeed extremely powerful, especially with many hidden killing moves that were hard to defend against. Wu Yu was not in a hurry to defeat them. Through fighting, he could better integrate what he had learned. He also better mastered the power of the one long stick and stimulated the infinite power in the world. Once this kind of power erupted, it would be devastating and could beat Bai Vuchang into a panic. However, for this kind of puppet, it must be completely destroyed before it can be defeated, and the opponent has no fear at all. 3 hours later, Wu Yu was sweating all over and panting. Under his violent bombardment, and finally with the violent technique, he finally beat the black impermanence into powder first. Next is the white impermanence, and if there is only one, it will be much easier. It didn't take long to finally get it done. Of course, Wu Yu also suffered a lot of injuries, even scars. However, he still has some time to recuperate, and the black and white impermanence that he broke up also needs some time to recover. Now, I can be on an equal footing with them. After Wu Yu defeated the black and white impermanence, his belief in his heart became even more fervent. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 657. Looking at Sendai. 9 people in total. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Today, everyone is standing in a corner, outside the barrier. Their faces are decaying, and their eyes are full of uneasiness and violence. Princess Yuking, Prince Feng, Juzing Xiuqi, etc. Outside the Taku Immortal Road, they have all the power in the world and have a lofty status. They can control the wind and rain without using their strength, just their status. However, in the Wangxian Terrace on the Taku Immortal Road, despite countless attempts, the barrier could not be broken, and outside the barrier of Wangxiantai, there was no one knows how much soil and rocks were covered. In addition, the ancient immortal talismans do not work. As time passed and gradually approached the limited time of that year, they naturally became more and more panicked, more and more fearful, and more violent. No one dared to speak. Once they spoke, they would probably start a quarrel, because at this time, everyone's temperament was unstable. Wang Zhigzun was hiding in the corner. He was at his level here, far lower than others. Anyone could kill him, and he didn't even have an ancient immortal talisman, so he could only hide. Thinking of the future, he couldn't help crying. I really regret it. They all told me to leave quickly, but I didn't listen and ran up to Wangxian Terrace. It's over, everything is over. I can't go back, I'm going to die here. I can't go back. If I had known, I wouldn't have come to the Taku Immortal Road. Wang Zhigzun's face turned pale, he sat down on the ground and looked around in panic. Shut up, if you keep arguing, I will send you back to the west immediately. Princess Yuking glared at him, making him tremble with fear and dare not say a word. For a long time, Prince Feng frowned deeply and said, if this continues, there is really no way, no way. We don't want to die here. We have such a noble status and are the future of the Yanfa world. If we die here, the future of the Jamfa world is ruined. Juxing Sweji said, everyone except us has gone out now. Most people probably think that this time the Taku Immortal Road is over. Only our relatives and friends are still waiting for us. Everyone might as well work together and think of a solution. No matter what, now we are grasshoppers on the same rope. We should put aside our past grudges and work together to survive together, Princess Yuking said. It's useless. How many times have we attacked together? There's still nothing we can do with this barrier. Don't think about other useless things. Our only hope is here. Feng Jianqing of Eternal Sword Dao stretched out his hand and pointing to the Fusion Tower outside Wangxian Terrace. When he said these words, everyone fell silent. Perhaps, this was a kind of acquiescence. It was obvious that Wu Yu had already left the barrier. He is already outside the barrier. He can use the ancient immortal talisman and leave directly. Why should he care about us? We all regard him as prey. Now, it is his turn to pity us. If we have been trapped here, even him no one else knows about having so many treasures, and Wu Yu is the biggest winner. Prince Feng gritted his teeth. Fact, that's it. Having said that, him being able to go out is beyond our imagination and is a huge blow to us. However, I think we still have a chance, Feng Jianqing said. Tell me the details. Feng Jianqing said, since he did not leave directly as soon as he came out, but hid in the pagoda, it means that he is not willing to leave the Taku Immortal Road. He still has things he wants to accomplish. Then what exactly does he want to do? Princess Yuking frowned. I don't know about this. If I were him, I would have left us here and left Feng Jianqing waved his hand and said. Others can't understand either. No matter what he wants to do, as long as he comes out, we will have a chance. When the time comes, as long as he shows up, everyone should be smarter and find a way to let him in. As long as he comes in, we will rob his pagoda first. Everyone, let's make a decision first. Wait until we get this treasure, and then we will decide the ownership of all the treasures. This is an extraordinary time, and I think you should all behave yourself. If you break our agreement and rules, everyone will die here. Qinghuan. Sacrifice the way. No problem. No problem. The key is he a fool? Will he come in? I think it should be possible. From the look in Wu Yu's eyes, he might be a little dissatisfied with what we did to him. Maybe he wants to take revenge. Wang Zhigzun interjected. Not satisfied and have ideas. That's the best. The more he hates us, the more opportunities we have. Everyone knows what to do, right? Juxing Suejia smiled. That day the Emperor Shu said, I understand. Wu Yu was born in a poor and miserable place. What he hates the most is people like us who are of noble birth and have reached the sky in one step. He also hates us taking advantage of the opportunity to suppress him, especially when we threaten Dongsheng Shenzhou. So, if he appears, we will continue to use this method and drive him to lose his mind. I agree. During a conversation by chance, everyone discussed the details, and everything was waiting for Wu Yu to come out. They believe that Wu Yu will come out. If they lose this opportunity for Wu Yu, they may really panic. Although there are still a few months, if there is no other way, the consequences will be unimaginable. Finally, after a few days, when they closed their eyes to rest, there was a sudden movement in the floating life tower. Everyone was startled and quickly prepared. They didn't expect that one day they would be so nervous to deal with Wu Yu. Sure enough, Wu Yu came out of the floating life tower. Everyone was afraid that he would leave, so they were about to start and lure Wu Yu into the immortal watching platform. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading. They have thought of the lines, which are all threatening words, claiming that if they go out, they will definitely make Wu Yu pay the price, etc. But what they didn't expect was that Wu Yu came out directly, put away the floating life tower, and stepped directly into the immortal watching platform with the one long stick that made their eyes burn in his hand. He actually came in. The 9 people looked at each other, and everyone's face was full of disbelief. But everyone was ecstatic, because Wu Yu came in with the floating life tower, which meant that everyone's chance had come. They only needed to work together to kill Wu Yu and grab the floating life tower, and they would have hope. At this time, Wu Yu held a stick for each person. His face was indifferent. After landing on the Wang Xiantai, he stared at them and walked towards them step by step. Every step was very steady, from which we can see his determination and firm belief in his heart. But the 9 of them became nervous for no reason. Wu Yu finally came in, and they communicated secretly. They must not alert the enemy to prevent Wu Yu from finding an opportunity to escape again. This is how Wu Yu escaped last time. The situation has changed. Don't worry. Let's see what Wu Yu's purpose is. We must find a suitable opportunity to take action. We can't let him go out again. If he goes out this time, our hope will be completely broken. They reminded each other. Okay. Wu Yu just faced them face to face. In fact, Wu Yu knew all the tricks in their hearts. He just wanted to sneer. The time for game has come. This is also the time for revenge. Wu Yu, why are you back again? We envy you for being able to cross this barrier. Princess Yueying said in a slightly gentler tone. Wu Yu smashed the one long stick to the ground, shaking the Wang Xiantai. Such a heavy spiritual weapon also made everyone's eyelids jump. Wu Yu stared at them and said in a loud voice, "Before, the 8 of you thought I was not qualified to own these treasures. I was not convinced. The reason why I didn't leave today was to prove to you that I, Wu Yu, was fully qualified. I know that you also want to get these things on me, and I, Wu Yu, can't let my relatives and friends get involved because I got the treasures. So I want to make an agreement with you. I want to participate in the battle you set before, decide the strongest one in the middle, and then distribute these treasures on me. I am willing to take them out as prizes for the battle, but I also need you to promise me that after you go out, you will never touch my relatives and friends." Everyone was a little stunned when these words came out. They seemed to have met a huge fool. He actually not only contributed treasures as prizes, but also wanted to participate in it personally, just to make them promise not to touch his relatives and friends. Although the promises made by these 8 people here have a certain effect. But the problem is, first, if there is no Wu Yu, they can't get out at all, so the threats they said are actually useless. Maybe Wu Yu thinks that they can still get out later. And second, he just contributed treasures, and he came to join the battle, isn't it looking for death? The 9 people couldn't figure it out. But for them, this is definitely a great thing. They hope that Wu Yu can take out the things, and they also hope that he can participate in the battle and give everyone a chance to kill him openly. Happiness came too suddenly. "Wu Yu, are you sure you want to do this?" Princess Yuyan asked. Wu Yu nodded and said, "I think it through. You are the future of the entire Yanfa world. I can't offend so many people at once, otherwise, I and my relatives and friends will suffer in the future." They looked at each other, still a little confused about why there was such a surprise. They could only say that Wu Yu was really from a small place, and he had no courage, so he was frightened. However, this was a great opportunity. That King Gu Yunsi said, "But if you want to join the battle, we have exactly 8 people, but if there is one more person, it will be difficult to arrange the battle. 8 people, fighting in pairs, to decide the top 4, and then decide the first, second, and third, one more person will be difficult to deal with." Wu Yu said, "This is simple, I am a latecomer, let me fight a round first, and then the 8 of you will vote for someone to fight with me. Only by defeating me can you participate in your 8-person decisive battle. 8 people vote for the weakest person, isn't this appropriate?" The little prince was shocked. He hadn't spoken for a long time. Unexpectedly, Wu Yu's spearhead was directly pointed at him. However, he was not afraid. Everyone looked at each other. The temptation proposed by Wu Yu was too great, which made his request now not a request, so soon, they all agreed. "That's it, let's first choose the one we all agree is the weakest. I choose, myself." Unexpectedly, 9-star Snow Chi said it in advance. Everyone understood, and then voted for 9-star Snow Chi. But, he is not the weakest. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 658. This was beyond Wu Yu's expectation. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot circled M. Wu Yu originally thought that the first battle against the little prince would be enough. However, the demon 9-star Snow Chi appeared at this time and took the initiative to participate in the qualification battle with Wu Yu. Its intention was naturally obvious. They had agreed long ago that they were allies at this time, and everyone wanted to get out and get Wu Yu's floating life tower. Since Wu Yu wanted to fight openly, they certainly wanted it. Although they didn't know why Wu Yu made such a stupid decision, they still played along. At this time, they regarded Wu Yu as timid and didn't really have the courage to offend them, so after thinking it through, they came out to ask for forgiveness. This idiot, doesn't he know that he can actually leave directly, while it is difficult for us to leave for the time being? Maybe, in the next few months, we will find a way to leave, and after we go out, we will cause trouble for him. Maybe this is what he is worried about. It's hard to say, What if the barrier of Wangxiantai suddenly fails? Everything is possible. They think that Wu Yu is afraid of this possibility, so he is not in a hurry to leave. Wu Yu, is there a problem with me fighting with you? Juxing Suechi thought that he could intercept him directly, find a way to grab the fusion tower, or even kill Wu Yu. As for the ownership of the treasure, it was a game between the 8 of them. If you want to get a good ranking, you must be prepared to fight against all the strong. You won't face me. Are you afraid? Juxing Suechi said sarcastically. Everyone was waiting for Wu Yu's answer. Wu Yu suddenly smiled and shook his head, saying, "No, how could that be? You were chosen by everyone." They could see that Wu Yu had made progress in his realm, but for them, the Purple Palace energy increased by this progress was actually very small. After all, the Purple Palace realm was already far away from them. Wu Yu agreed so quickly that they were still confused. Of course, all decisions were good for them, so they were not polite at all. In that case, let's start right now. Wang Zhixun was very excited because he saw that not only could he leave the Wangxian Terrace, but his ancient fairy talisman could also be used. The other 7 people scattered to the edge of the entire Wangxian Terrace, almost surrounding Wu Yu and the 9-star Snow Chi. They called it giving Wu Yu and the other 2 an absolute fighting space, but in fact they were worried that Wu Yu would slip away again. They secretly discussed that they must seize this opportunity. Let me make it clear first. I don't want anyone to interfere in this open and above-board battle. If someone breaks the rules, I would rather take the risk and leave by myself and not care about you anymore. At this time, Wu Yu suddenly became serious. Everyone looked at each other. This didn't seem to be a big deal, so they were too lazy to intervene, so they all nodded and smiled. Stop talking nonsense, Wu Yu. The 9-star Snow Chi was very excited. At this time, the fierce power was displayed, and the majestic demonic energy swept out, stirring in this Wangxiantai, almost turning the surrounding area into his territory. Wu Yu had finally waited for this opportunity, and of course he would not be polite to him. He knew that everyone was curious, and his decision-making plan had just begun. Everyone had ulterior motives. Wu Yu knew it very well. The demon 9-star Snow Chi had a violent temperament and was not very smart among this group of people, so he became Wu Yu's first target. Of course, he asked for it. At this moment, the most eye-catching thing about Wu Yu was undoubtedly the infinite 10,000 dragons stick in his hand, which everyone dreamed of. Wu Yu could only use half of the magic circle now. But even so, the 10,000 dragons soaring and roaring on the 10,000 dragon stick still gave Wu Yu a huge confidence, because the 9-star Snow Chi was originally a kind of dragon, but a hornless dragon. Like the 9-star Snow Chi, it was not recognized by the dragon clan because of its evil nature and was classified as a demon. At this moment, the 9-star Snow Chi gradually changed from a human form to a huge dragon with its teeth and claws bared in front of Wu Yu. This is a real dragon, similar to Luo Bin, but it is classified as a demon, but the dragon's power on its body still exists. Except for the lack of dragon horns, it is not much different from other dragons. The 9-star Snow Chi, its entire body is covered with snow and ice. On its slender body, there are 9 points of dragon scales that are very shiny, and it looks like there are 9 shining stars on its body. This majestic, powerful beast stared at Wu Yu with its huge dragon eyes and looked at him with contempt. When he transformed into his original body, Wu Yu had actually transformed into the largest body by following the laws of heaven and earth. Of course, such a body is still very small compared to the monsters, but the increase in physical strength has surpassed the monsters by a lot. Although the opponent's body is large, his physical body is far less solid than Wu Yu. Coupled with the immortal ape transformation, Wu Yu at this time is almost the same as the monster. The burly, huge body of the god, the violent and fierce face of the ape, the one long stick in his hand, the magnificent power, the domineering and surging, at first glance, at least in terms of momentum, it seems that he is not weaker than the 9-star Snow Chi. But the most important thing is to fight. We have to remind 9-star Snow Chi that in order to avoid mistakes, it's better not to play with him, but to kill Wu Yu directly, Prince Feng said to Princess Yueying. He knows what's going on. As soon as they said this, they were relieved immediately, because the 9-star Snow Chi really showed no mercy and directly used his innate magical power 9-star Hell. The innate magical power of demons is basically their strongest means. In front of Wu Yu, the huge 9-star Snow Chi opened its mouth and spit out. Suddenly, the 9 shining dragon scales on its body suddenly went out and lost their luster, but then, it spit out 9 shining spheres in succession. The surface of the spheres was bumpy, just like the stars in the sky, but it looked heavy and shining with dazzling light. The 9 stars instantly surrounded Wu Yu. When the 9 stars formed a circle, dark blue beams burst out from each other, connecting with each other, and the 9 stars instantly connected. At the moment of connection, Wu Yu felt that he was blocked in a world of death. Sure enough, the 9-star Snow Chi wanted to kill Wu Yu with one blow. Snow Realm Dragon Roar. Someone exclaimed, the 9-star Snow Chi just finished performing a lifelong magical power, and immediately took off, circling Wu Yu in the narrow space of the Wangxiantai. The snow fell all over the sky and fell into the control range of the 9-star Hell. This 9-star Hell instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. The 9-star Snow Chi is really ruthless, directly using 2 killer moves to deal with a guy who is still in the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. Indeed, it's too exaggerated, but it's good for us. As they talked, Wu Yu seemed to be a lamb to be slaughtered. Wu Yu did encounter a huge threat. If it were before, he would have died without a doubt. At this time, the 9 stars around the 9-star Snow Chi were shaking violently while connecting to each other. Wu Yu felt that if the stars exploded, he would definitely be blown into powder. Everyone present should not be underestimated. But, as the saying goes, all is fair in war. As long as you can kill the opponent, you can do anything. Therefore, when the 9-star Snow Chi activated its 2 major innate magical powers and brought about a crisis of death, Wu Yu was not in a hurry. At this moment, the 9-star Hell really erupted. The 9 stars interacted with each other and formed a violent reaction. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurred. For a moment, everything in front of Wu Yu was engulfed by the starlight. It was as if there was a starburst that had accumulated for countless years in the endless starry sky. But what was even more terrifying was that only within the range of the 9 stars was there the power of the explosion. Outside the 9-star Hell, there was no movement at all. The 9 stars exploded into a huge sphere of light, engulfing Wu Yu. Then countless explosions occurred in this shining sphere. And the 9-star Snow Chi also made a sharp dragon roar at this time. The sound of the dragon roar turned into substance, like a ray of light, piercing into the starburst sphere. The sharp power of the sound could even hurt the soul. The cooperation of the 2 major innate magical powers of the 9-star Snow Chi killed many people. It's done, everyone smiled when they saw this scene. Don't mention Wu Yu, we are in danger inside, 9-star Snow Chi, you are really not polite. Don't be polite, the key is to get Wu Yu's tower, the sooner this person dies, the better, King Gu Yunzi said. They had no disagreement on this point. As for the 9-star Snow Chi, seeing Wu Yu lose all his voice, he was also proud. Of course, this was his trophy, and he wanted to get those trophies earlier than others, such as the pagoda, such as the 10,000 dragon stick. Although everyone agreed to fair competition, there will always be people who have other thoughts. After all, no one feels safe. After experiencing a large number of starbursts, the 9-star Snow Chi opened its mouth and swallowed the power of the starburst, and the stars on its dragon scales shone again. After swallowing the stars, Wu Yu's relics naturally stayed and suddenly appeared. It turned out to be the pagoda. The floating life tower, unscathed, fell from the sky and would soon land. Seeing this pagoda, everyone was extremely excited. Everyone wanted to be the first to get the pagoda, so they forgot one thing. In fact, Wu Yu could hide in the pagoda under such an attack. That's right, Wu Yu hid in the floating life tower directly when these powers burst out, so he was unscathed at this time. When the power of the 9-star snow chi disappeared, he suddenly appeared. At this time, the 9-star snow chi was very close to him. He was about to stretch out his dragon claws to take away the floating life tower, but he didn't expect that Wu Yu, who was unscathed, would appear in front of it. Also appearing was Wu Yu's new black and white impermanence. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 659. A man and two puppets suddenly appeared in front of the 9-star snow chi. To be honest, the 9-star snow chi was too arrogant, so the current situation was beyond its expectations. Because of this, when Wu Yu suddenly attacked at this moment, he didn't even have much power to fight back. After all, Wu Yu still had the black and white impermanence to help. Even if he dealt with two 9-star snow chi, there would be no problem. The 9-star snow chi used its innate magical power as soon as it attacked, and now was the time when it was consumed the most. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Killing people requires timing. It is even more important to be fast, accurate and ruthless in the timing. Wu Yu has been waiting for this moment for a long time. First, the black and white impermanence exploded. They were on Wu Yu's left and right, one holding the crying stick and the other wrapped around the soul-catching rope. The white impermanence went to the left of the 9-star snow chi under Wu Yu's command. He gathered all the magic arrays on his body and suddenly activated the attack array Divine Light Shadowless Array. Wu Yu had fought with him for a long time before and was very familiar with this array. At this time, the white impermanence raised the crying stick. For a moment, a strong white light swept across, which was extremely dazzling and instantly engulfed the 9-star snow chi in the white light. At the moment of engulfment, the white impermanence had already smashed the crying stick on the body of the 9-star snow chi. On the right was the black impermanence. His soul-catching rope spread out, like a poisonous snake, and quickly wrapped around the body of the 9-star snow chi for several circles. The soul-catching rope was deeply strangled into its flesh and blood. The burst of black lightning instantly spread along the soul-catching rope to the whole body of the 9-star snow chi. What he used was the nightmare haunting formation. Wu Yu had experienced it before. It had a very terrifying paralyzing effect. Under this nightmare, the 9-star snow chi was paralyzed all over. In fact, he could not feel much pain, but his body was sore and his will was exhausted. Even the white impermanence smashed his body into pieces in the chaos, but he could not feel it. In his eyes, there was only a moment of depression, fear, and ferocity towards Wu Yu. Wu Yu appeared and only looked at him. To be honest, even if there were only the black and white impermanence, they could entangle the 9-star snow chi for a long time, or even defeat him, but Wu Yu wanted a quick victory. You are the first, Wu Yu grinned. This confident and indifferent smile made the paralyzed 9-star snow chi feel cold. He wanted to roar loudly and break free, but the feeling of powerlessness on his body was too depressing. Bang! At this time, he was hit on the forehead by Vuchang's stick. He didn't expect that the crying stick was so powerful. He felt dizzy and his soul was upside down. Buzz buzz buzz. His whole body was paralyzed and dizzy. At this moment, Wu Yu in front of him suddenly disappeared, and a sense of death crisis loomed. At that moment, Juxing Snow Chi was a little stunned. He didn't quite understand why such a thing happened. Whether he understood it or not, Wu Yu had gathered all his purple mansion energy, the infinite power of the Wanlong stick, and the support of the group of dragons. All the power gathered together, and he was just short of using violence. But even so, such a stick from the spiritual tool hit the huge head of the Juxing Snow Chi, and suddenly a huge force like shattering smashed the head of the Juxing Snow Chi directly into half of the inside. Ah! The 9-star Snow Chi screamed miserably and struggled madly. He Vuchain played very stably at this time, shocking its counter-attack before death. This was the first time that the 9-star Snow Chi felt pain. He had no idea that he had been injured to this extent before. Under the terrible pain, his head was shattered in half. He struggled madly and screamed before dying. His bloody eyes were waiting for Wu Yu, and he couldn't believe it. He didn't believe that Wu Yu had such strength. He didn't believe that Wu Yu dared to kill him. I am the young master of the 9-star sea. If you dare to kill me, I will let the entire Dongsheng Shenzhou be buried with you, the 9-star Snow Chi screamed madly and miserably. What he saw was that Wu Yu came with another stick. The previous stick had sent him to the brink of death. This stick, the heavy power of the upper spiritual weapon, was enough to make him die. However, he saw the indifference in Wu Yu's eyes, and the slightest unwavering. Maybe he realized at this time that Wu Yu had already decided to kill him. Incomparably determined. Perhaps, he understood why Wu Yu did not leave directly, but came in and entangled with them. This was terrible. He dared to kill himself in such a poor and bad place. Even, his target was not just himself. This made Juxing Xueqi collapse instantly, and his hair stood on end. "Save me," he cried and asked for help from the people around him. He was completely panicked at this moment, and was trembling with fear. Maybe someone wanted to save him. After all this happened too fast, and everyone hadn't reacted yet. Before that, Wu Yu roared, and the dragon surrounded the one long stick in his hand, making a shocking dragon roar. He combined Wu Yu's physical body and the power of the purple mansion Kanghai, and violently hit the forehead with the stick. Suddenly, the powerful destructive force made the head of Juxing Xueqi shrivel up. Tear. Black and white impermanence also exerted their strength, and the soul-catching rope directly cut its riddled body into several pieces. 9-star Snow Chi, tragic death. Its body and a large amount of blood fell from the sky and landed on the Wangxian terrace. Unexpectedly, the Wangxian terrace was so scary that it swallowed the blood directly without leaving any trace. Only the body of the 9-star Snow Chi was left here, but it soon became shriveled. Wu Yu took the opportunity to pick up the sumi bag of the 9-star Snow Chi and hung it on his waist. At this time, he stood next to the body of the 9-star Snow Chi. The two puppets of black and white impermanence, who looked weird and behaved mechanically, appeared around him like ghosts. Their eyes were dull and they respected Wu Yu. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Killing the 9-star Snow Chi was for revenge and for their resources. When they ignored Wu Yu's life, Wu Yu thought about what he would do at this moment. In fact, he could just leave them behind, but he was afraid that they would find a way to leave the Wangxian terrace later. Because they knew about his floating life tower and the 10,000 dragon stick, if he didn't kill them, if they went out, Wu Yu would definitely be in great trouble. So, he made a bold and crazy decision. He wanted to kill people, and everyone here. Only these people were dead, and he would be safe if he left alone, because, except for them, no one knew the existence of the floating life tower, and no one would know that it was him who did it. When the 9-star Snow Chi died in battle, Wu Yu completely embarked on this road of no return, but this was forced by them. Of course, there were 7 more people, all of whom were very powerful, and it was not easy for Wu Yu to accomplish all this. However, he had a plan in his mind. After surviving a disaster, revenge must be taken. Even if their identities and backgrounds were against the sky, so what? Here, there is only life and death, no background. Of course, it is a difficult time right now. At this time, the 8 people, including Wang Zhigzun, were shocked and pale, looking at Wu Yu lightly, as if nothing had happened. Wang Zhixun was so frightened that he fell to the ground. He remembered that before the battle, he was still thinking that he would soon leave with the ancient immortal talisman. But, what is going on here? Wu Yu took the ancient fairy talisman of the 9-star snow chi as if nothing had happened, and suddenly threw it to Wang Zhixun, saying, "Here, this is yours, don't worry about my one in the future. After all, you can't go back to the Yanhuang ancient domain after you arrive in Dongsheng Shenzhou, right?" Wang Zhixun picked up the ancient fairy talisman with trembling hands, nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, and said, "Yes, you are right." Wu Yu turned his head and smiled at everyone, saying, "I'm sorry, everyone, I concealed the fact that my strength has made a major breakthrough. Because of this, I have the confidence to compete with you openly for these treasures that originally belonged to me. As for the death of the 9-star snow chi, I'm really sorry, because he wanted to kill me. This person fought without mercy, and I took his life in a rage. This is not my fault. After all, we didn't agree on the rules, whether to kill or not. After this time, I think we can make it clear whether to kill or not. Don't you think so?" They knew that Wu Yu was no longer the same. From the tone of his speech and his attitude, they were all different. Wu Yu at this time made them a little afraid, especially when he killed the 9-star snow chi. His expression was cold. To be honest, it really scared them. Wu Yu's behavior was incredible. Even they did not dare to kill the 9-star snow chi in front of everyone. This was undoubtedly going to start a war with the 9-star sea. If the 9-star sea knew that the 9-star snow chi died in Wu Yu's hands, Dongsheng Shenzhou, at least Wu Yu's relatives and friends, would definitely be destroyed, including Wu Yu himself, who would not die well. So, they were still in shock. Wu Yu said easily, "As for what the consequences will be if I kill the 9-star snow chi, this is my own business, so you don't have to worry about it. Before, I killed the eternal shark according to the order of Emperor Yu, and you have guessed it. Maybe the eternal demon clan will also hunt me down. In this case, I think it doesn't matter. But, can I kill people next? Please give me an opinion." He smiled and looked at everyone. Everyone here wanted to kill Wu Yu and divide his treasure. However, the strange thing is that Wu Yu killed people first and then asked them whether killing people was right or not. This made them feel depressed and wanted to vomit blood. "Don't you want to continue? Then I'm leaving. You can find a way to get out of this Wang Xiantai." Wu Yu put away his smile. Maybe he is very cunning. He just wants to use these people to get the things on him. They can't give up, so they will give him the opportunity to kill them one by one, openly. Wu Yu is like putting bait and letting these people take the bait one by one. And these people will definitely take the bait because they are afraid of death and afraid that Wu Yu will leave. Judging from Wu Yu's current strength, they can't stop Wu Yu from leaving. Now, Wu Yu gave them a chance. Who made them treat themselves like dogs in the first place, killing them whenever they want, and completely despising them. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 660. Chapter 660. Wu Yu turned his head, faced everyone with a smile, and said, "I'm sorry for hiding the fact that I have a major breakthrough in strength. Because of this, I have the confidence to compete with you all for these treasures that belong to me. As for I'm really sorry for Juxing Sweji's death. It was because he wanted to kill me. This man showed no mercy in fighting. I was so angry that I took his life. It's not my fault. After all, we haven't agreed on the rules about whether we can kill people. After this time, I think we can make it clear whether we can kill people, right?" They knew that Wu Yu was no longer the same. The tone and attitude of his words were completely different. Wu Yu at this time was a bit scary to them, especially the cold expression on his face when he killed the 9-star snow chi. To be honest, it really scared them. Wu Yu's behavior was unbelievable. Even they did not dare to kill Juxing Xueqi in front of everyone. This was undoubtedly going to start a war with Juxing Hai. If Juxing Hai knew that Juxing Xueqi died in Wu Yu's hands and Dongsheng Shenzhou, at least Wu Yu's relatives and friends would definitely be destroyed, including Wu Yu himself, and he would not die a good death. So, they are still in shock. Wu Yu said relaxedly, as for what will happen if I kill the 9-star Snow Chi, this is my own business, so you don't need to worry about it. I killed the immortal shark before according to the order of Emperor Yu. You have already guessed it, maybe the immortal demon clan will hunt me down. In that case, I don't think it matters. But, can you give me your opinion on whether I can kill people next? He looked at everyone with a smile. Everyone here wants to kill Wu Yu and divide his treasures. However, the strange thing is that Wu Yu kills people first and then asks them, is killing someone right? This made them feel blocked and depressed to the point of vomiting blood. Could it be that you don't want to continue? Then I'm going to leave, and you can think of a way to get out of Wang Xiantai. Wu Yu put away his smile. Maybe, he is cunning. He just wanted to use these people to get what he had on him. They couldn't give up, so they would give him the opportunity to kill them one by one in an honest way. Wu Yu was like putting out bait and letting these people take the bait one by one. And these people will definitely take the bait because they are afraid of death and fear of Wu Yu leaving. Judging from Wu Yu's current strength, they cannot stop Wu Yu from leaving. Now, it was Wu Yu who gave them a chance. Who told them to treat me like a dog, to kill them if they wanted, with complete contempt. Look,